Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where it is you are listening. This is Dan Turchin, host of AI in the Future of Work, and the CEO of Insight Finder, the AI-first system of intelligence for IT operations, and the executive chairman at PeopleRain, the AI platform for employee HR and IT service. Now, welcome back to another exciting week. As you know, we discuss the future of work every week here with CXOs and investors, with entrepreneurs, the ones who are defining the future of work. And we tend to focus on AI as it relates to automated decision-making, data hygiene, job creation, and oftentimes the ethical implications of autonomous labor. Now, a couple key technologies that we haven't focused on in a while are IoT, the Internet of Things, and blockchain, that are really part of the plumbing that's required to enable many of the workplace changes that we discuss frequently. For example, we've discussed ambient AI in offices to regulate things like temperature in conference rooms, and those require smart devices and sensor networks. Well, we've also discussed micropayments and transactions for everything from parking to contact tracing, all of which could be secured and tracked on a blockchain. Today, we're lucky to have a guest who has been on the ground floor of new technology in and around Silicon Valley as an investor, an analyst, and an operator for more than 25 years. He's an enthusiast around things related to edge computing, IoT, and blockchain, but frankly, he's been an advocate and an influencer when it comes to just about every technology. Philippe most recently founded and is the CEO of Topio Networks, an industry catalyst that creates communities related to new technologies. Using AI, Topio tracks more than 40,000 technology trends and has created a network of more than 1.2 million tech and business users. Prior to Topio, Philippe was in similar roles at Read-Write Labs and Spoke. He also served as a board member for quite some time at VentureBeat. We have so much to discuss today. This should be a good one if you're looking for the next industry to disrupt. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Philippe Cases to the podcast. Philippe, welcome to the show. Why don't you start by describing your background?
Well, Dan, thank you so much for having me here, and glad to be here. Glad to be with you discussing all those trends. Just to give you a brief background of myself, I'm an engineer by training, and I've been a venture capitalist my entire life, except the last 5, where I decided to go to the dark side and become an entrepreneur. In the same way, I'm originally from France. I spent half of my life in Europe and half of my life in the United States as well. I grew up in the 70s in a region close to the German border called Lorraine, which is very similar to Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. We were very dependent on steel and coal, but we also had one of the top universities in France and in Europe, like Carnegie Mellon. And the region declined very quickly, as Pittsburgh did in the 70s. And I became very interested in how to develop new ecosystem in a region like Pittsburgh and Lorraine, centered around technology, hence my interest for venture capital. And so, I'm also since a very young age, I've also been fascinated by media and radio broadcast in particular. So I started a radio broadcast when I was in engineering school, and the radio broadcast is still in activity now. And I've always also, since my very young age, I'm also been very attracted to the US. I grew up close to a US military base in France, and I was fascinated by the Berlin airlift and the moon landing, to a point that my older brother was calling me Phil the American. And I was like 7 or 8 years old at the time. So here I am now in Silicon Valley, working on technology. I've been, as you said, a managing partner of venture fund, raised about 500 million over the course of my tenure. The fund I was involved with were in the top decile of their industry. I've spotted very early software as a service, and I've spotted very early open source as well. I'm very early stage investors investing in technologies and entrepreneurs at a very young age. So thank you so much.
Glad to have you here. Phil the American. I like
exactly.
That, I like that nickname. And now, when I first started to get to know Topio, I was impressed by the team's use of AI to track technology trends. Maybe if you could share, what was the gap in the market that led you to found Topio?
Yeah, well, very quickly, we if you remember right before Google, right, when you needed to have information, you would commit to, have a business analyst who would go to a library or a documentation center and would study the question you had and to provide you with a report, right? So along come Google, and now you can ask the question, you can type the question and get the information in real time, all the content you need for the topics that you're researching for free. And if you look at 20 years later, if you look at the industry research, it's still antiquated like it was before Google, except the libraries or the documentation center are called industry research firm. And so when you have a business question, you talk to a business analyst who is going to investigate the content available in industry research firms, write you a report, and then provide you with that report. It's very costly, it's very lengthy, it's not updated in real time, and it breaks your flow of thinking, because if you look at how you work with Google, you basically type your question and you refine your understanding based on the question you're asking, and you have this flow of juice of thinking, of creative thinking that come from interacting with Google. Well, that's what we want to do for a business insight. So there are very basic questions that each entrepreneurs and each market leaders are asking themselves. It's about 80% of the questions that are being asked that we should be able to answer in real time and quickly and very cheaply, and that's what we're aimed to do. I did a lot of that work when I was at my venture firm working with analysts. So it was in a way very expensive. And now with AI, we're able to provide the same type of business insights at a fraction of the cost of what a traditional industry research or platform like CB Insight or Gartner could do. So don't get me wrong, we are not saying we will replace industry research or we will replace CB Insight. We are just saying that we're building a new categories within industry research, which is this access to those dynamic business insights that you can access in real time when you need them at your fingertips.
Now, I know you're a little biased, but will there ever be a time when we can fully automate that process of generating business insights?
I don't think so. It's a very tricky question because you're doomed if you say yes, and you're doomed if you say no, right? So in the same way, nobody envisioned autonomous vehicles in our lifetime. I think we are now seeing that it could be possible, and it's going to be definitely possible within our lifetime. The way to think about the question, though, is that there are two main functions to research. So one is mechanical, I would say, which is gathering the information, and the other is editorial, which is how to put this information in context. And this editorial part is very human-like, so it's very about how somebody sees, and it's very unique. So how somebody sees the market, and so I think the first part, the mechanical part, will be automated by AI, but you're still going to need a research analyst to provide the context that you need around the information. So innovation is accelerating, right? And competition is happening at a faster pace now. I mean, look at what's happening with Tesla and Amazon. So we need more research rather than less. We need it more customized and with quicker turnaround, as the mindset can change quicker. So we need a combination of AI and more interesting insights from a research analyst at the same time.
Place a bet. What comes first? Fully autonomous vehicles on 101 or fully autonomous business insights?
I would say fully autonomous vehicle on one because the act of driving is very mechanical. So I would think that driving is going to happen before business insight for sure.
Maybe in the next conversation we'll see how you're doing on that prognostication.
I'm willing to take the bet. I'm willing to take the bet.
There you go. No, you're very well known in edge computing circles. Describe what edge computing is all about, and maybe specifically what's one or two of the most exciting companies that you've encountered that are tackling edge computing problems.
Okay, so very succinctly, right? So what is happening is a fundamental shift, and I've seen one of those shifts only 3 times in my entire life. So the first one was the emergence of PC. The second one was the emergence of the internet and how as a human we became connected to the internet, right? So with PC first and then with mobile, and now we're getting to this third phase where we're connected all our environment to the internet, right? So all our objects, everything is now being connected to the internet, and with that, with all those objects being connected to the internet, you can do 2 things, right? So you gather information about themselves, but you also gather information about everything that is happening around them, right? So it's not an old trend, right? It's something that started about 20 years ago even before then with RFID. Then it evolved into what people talked about as Internet of Things, which was still a very cloud-based model where people were connecting, were getting the information from the object. We're sending all the objects to the cloud, and then the cloud, you would process all the information in the cloud and then send the information back, send the insight back to whoever needed it. And basically, very quickly, people understood that type of model was too expensive. It didn't have the right type of latency, and it was not the right also level of data privacy. And so we needed the same type of paradigm shift that happened in the thousands, where with open source software and commoditized platform, where the combination of open source software, commoditized platform enabled the emergence of the cloud as a platform to distribute, to create and distribute application. We saw the same thing happening for IoT in the last 2 years, where in order to enable the right processing of information, the right processing at the right level, people started to think about processing the information very close to the device, or even sometime on the device, and that's what we call edge computing. It's this process of bringing leveraging processing power and storage power that is very close to the device or even on the device to do things. And with that, with this ability to process information there and then send only the insights that are required to the cloud, and then have the cloud send the information everywhere else, you get to a point where the cost of bandwidth, the cost of processing, everything is being aligned, is cheap enough to show an ROI, and the level of latency is down, and you get to the right level of privacy because the data stays where it's being produced. So it's a completely new, different paradigm, and it's about processing very close to where the information is being created at the edge of the infrastructure rather than centrally in the cloud.
We essentially carry supercomputers in our pockets these days. Fast forward, let's say 5 years. Do you think that compute-intensive tasks like, say, facial recognition or complex AI modeling will be capable of being performed on the device?
I would say it depends on the type of application, right? But if you look at what TinyML, which is the industry association that is looking at really processing and training and inference on the device side. They are saying that within 2-3 years we should start seeing stuff happening on device that could be fairly disruptive. So I would think that within the next 10 years you're going to see a lot of things happening on the device themselves.
What's the first really innovative company that comes to mind that you think is making good use of edge computing capability?
So I mean, the thing that really excites me is those companies that are trying to build some type of leveraging all the capability of the device around a specific device to do to perform more tasks, more computes. So companies like Keneron, Mythic, the companies that Steve Jurvetson invested in, Halo or Calray, which are basically providing some type of an operating system that is going to run on any device, so that the device can work together in order to in order to federate all the processing power and all the storage power across all devices to do interesting stuff. I mean, I think that's kind of the future, and that's where all the action is going to be, and all the valuation are going to be.
What do you think is more of a limitation in terms of hardware? Is it compute or is it storage?
Good question. At this point, I would say it's more compute than storage. But it's all a matter. If you look at how technology evolved, right? So it's a combination of bandwidth, storage, and compute. And so you always have those breakthroughs, right? So cost of networking goes down, something happens. Cost of compute goes down, something happens. Cost of storage goes down, something happens, right? So it's all a matter of looking at what's happening now. And if I look at what's happening now, I mean, the cost of compute is at the right place. The cost of storage is definitely at the right place, and cost of bandwidth as well, especially if you look at those at the edge. So I would say limitation would be more cost of compute than cost of storage at this point. But I may be wrong. What about you? What do you think?
I think today the biggest impediment is bandwidth.
For sure.
I think there's so much capacity in terms of compute and storage. And but the question behind the question is, do you think we'll solve the bandwidth problem faster than we'll solve the compute and storage problem?
I think we are with 5G. So it's always Gs that are the best ones, right? So right now we're doing 5G. So probably the problem is going to be solved with 6G. 5G is kind of the first step to something bigger. So probably within the next 10 years, right, we're going to see what we need. But 5G is a good first step.
Well, you and I remember a time when we didn't even measure bandwidth in terms of Gs. So we've made a lot of progress already.
Absolutely.
I remember carrying a two-way Nextel radio around in my pocket that was operating on a proprietary IDEN network. We've come a long way.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, you and I offline were having conversation about DevOps and kind of new patterns of software development. And we were talking about impediments related to hardware, bandwidth, et cetera. To what extent do you think our ability to generate high quality software at scale and at speed, how much is that an impediment to be able to introduce some of these new services?
I mean, no doubt that DevOps is a place where you will need a lot more innovation in order to get to where we need to be when we have those distributed device network of device happening everywhere. So I would think that the level of complexity of DevOps is gonna increase at least 2 orders of magnitude with edge computing. So it's going to be a limiting factor in the future. In the future, it already is, and obviously you have companies like Insight Finders that are kind of providing the next level of DevOps for the company moving forward. But you're going to have to manage AI, you're going to have to manage security, you're going to have to manage privacy, and there are so many things that you need to manage that are going to be included in what you need to do from a DevOps standpoint. That it's going to be more complex rather than less.
Thanks for the plug for Insight Finder.
Now, you're welcome.
That was not a sponsored plug, by the way. Now,
absolutely not.
One of the dirty secrets in the DevOps community is that operators have been forced to behave like developers by essentially treating infrastructure as code much more rapidly than developers have been forced to kind of own the life cycle of their code in operations. Do you agree with that? And to what extent, if you do agree, is it important that developers shoulder their end of the burden to own the life cycle of their code?
Well, I mean, it's kind of interesting you say that, right? Because in my company, all the engineers are very conscious about DevOps, right? So the notion of the code is being built so that it's easy to manage and deploy on the upside. So I would think that especially in the future, right, that DevOps is going to be completely integrated in the thinking of developing a piece of software. That the ability to maintain it, the ability to deliver it where it needs to be is going to be very important. So I would say that software developers are going to have to at least understand what the issues of developing and maintaining their software are moving forward. So
your team at Topio is ahead of most teams.
I mean, it's being run by somebody who is coming from the ops world, so he's very conscious. It's interesting to see them, and it's very when I show you the amount of code that we've been able to develop with such a small team, people are usually amazed, and it's because we have this thinking that we're thinking about the code when we're writing code around how it's going to be maintained and delivered across the board. So it's very important.
Well, I too am biased coming from the world of infrastructure, but I'd say that outside of the software teams developing software for infrastructure management, I still think most of the world develops using waterfall methodologies. And when you say something like you write it, you own it to a developer, they turn pale white.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit like I remember when I was at Stanford Business School, right? I was at the Sloan program, which is the 1-year program for executives, and I was talking to the vice dean, and he was telling me, why do you need this? Because you have assistants that can do that for you. And I told him, I said, with the internet, in 10 years, we won't have assistant anymore. So 20 years later, we still have assistant anymore, but we are doing more and more stuff by ourselves. And I think this is what's going to happen to software developer as well, is they need to be able to take more on and understand that it's not only about the customer, but it's also about the entire value chain around the software that are their customers. So in a way, DevOps is one customer as another one, and they should be taken care of the same way.
Completely agree, and I think the next few years we're going to see a rapid transition.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm going to ask you a question. There's no right answer, but I'm eager to get your knee-jerk response here. So we talk on this show a lot about professions that are likely to be automated out of jobs. So of these three, which do you think will will be eliminated by AI first? Real estate agents, stockbrokers, or truck drivers?
So truck drivers, stockbrokers, real estate agents. So I would say truck driver first, because again, it's right. Driving is very mechanical, so I think it's going to happen first. Then I would say stockbrokers, like the traditional stockbroker, right? The guy who buy and sell, so which is basically creating market mechanism. That one is going to disappear. Real estate brokers, those people have a lot more. I mean, in order to make a sale, it's very it's very emotional, so very human-like. So I would bet you're going to need real estate brokers far more than stockbrokers and truck drivers.
I think Vlad from Robinhood would disagree with your assessment about truck drivers before stockbrokers.
well, you know, it depends on the definition you give to stockbrokers, right? So if it's really about the mechanical aspect, right? So there are stockbrokers that are really connected with their customers. Those ones are going to be very difficult to displace by AI. So
what do you think is one technology that will be commonplace at work in 2030 that today would just seem like science fiction?
Well, I mean, depend on what you're saying, right? So, I mean, do you think augmented reality glasses are science fiction today? Or do you think it's already there in a way?
Well, in Silicon Valley, we lived through that awful chapter with Google Glass, where they essentially became a reason to mock someone in a bar. So I don't know, but I've heard in domains like surgery or other manufacturing facilities using augmented reality, with embedded lenses is commonplace. So I think I would tend to say that's not science fiction, even though it's not broadly adopted.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, for me, augmented reality glasses is something that is going to happen within the next 5 to 10 years for work, for sure. The other one that I think is going to happen that may be a little bit more science fiction is holograms. I mean, it's the cost of holograms is pretty expensive right now. But it's just a matter of driving the technology curve to get to where it needs to be. Do you see autonomous vehicle being science fiction right now, or do you see it? Yes. So autonomous vehicle, I think, is going to happen before 2030. So, I mean, depending which one, right? So at least truck driving on freeways is going to happen for sure. I mean, we're going to see a lot more robots that are moving around us in the next 10 years.
A few weeks back, we had a gentleman named Evangelos Smoudis from Synapse Partners on the show, and he's written 2 books on autonomous driving. And I was actually surprised at how bearish he was. I asked him a similar question about 2030. And I think, to your point, it depends on what you call autonomous driving. If it's exactly, a golf cart in a retirement community, I think that's very different from exactly a robo taxi, in a densely populated urban area.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I have to say that the mood of people vary based on the market cap of Tesla. So right now, the market cap of Tesla is off the roof, right? So people are very positive about autonomous vehicle. Now, if the market cap starts going down, maybe we are going to see things differently. I mean, I have to say, if you look at companies like Waymo, if you look at Mobileye, if you look at all the different technologies, all of the different technology companies that are being built, they are making progress on a regular basis. And so I'm just in the same way I was not seeing autonomous vehicle at all at the beginning of the 2010 timeframe, right? I don't think, I mean, people are not seeing it, but I think it's going to happen within 10 years.
Between the two of us, I think we have well over, I think, 5 decades in and around Silicon Valley. But I say that with a sense of pride.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you would like to change about the culture of Silicon Valley?
I mean, I have to say there is nothing to change at this point, right? To be honest, I see Silicon Valley having achieved escape velocity, and they won't be challenged anytime soon, except by China. I mean, the amount of money that is pouring in, the amount of 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 talent that is available, the amounts of mentoring that is also available for those talent to deliver. I mean, everything is now being very professionalized with incubators like YC or the Alchemist, so I would say, maybe we can talk about diversity. Maybe we can talk about including more Latinos or African American community. We could think about things like that. But overall, I see many people living and moving in other areas in the United States, and I think it's a good thing. I think we need more innovation in Texas. We need more innovation in Florida. That doesn't mean that those states are going to be able to compete with Silicon Valley just because of who Silicon Valley is, and there is still a lot of value, locked in private company in Silicon Valley. So, if those people were not leaving, we would not be able to have restaurant, grocery store, hospitals, because the people working in those industries would have to spend 3 hours or 4 hours commuting one way to afford the cost of living. So I think the other thing I would like to say about that is, the world is changing, right? So, I mean, you're seeing, and especially since Trump, you're seeing Europe, Asia, India, and the USA, kind of splitting themselves. So the world of the unique internet that you had in the 2000 time frame is now disappearing and is becoming very fragmented. So, and Silicon Valley will have to compete against China, because I think China is kind of the place where there is probably at least the same amount of innovation as Silicon Valley as any other place in the world, and they cannot do that by themselves, right? So they need to keep building very strong connection from Europe with Europe right now. And if they don't do that, they are going to be limited in terms of their market access compared to what they were like, what they had like 20 years or even 10 years ago.
I think it may not be good for the price or for the appreciation rate of my house, but I think for the sake of the state of global entrepreneurship, I would like to see us be able to export the magic that has happened in Silicon Valley anywhere. And increasingly over the last year, I feel like whether it's talent or education or resources or capital, I am increasingly questioning that Silicon Valley has any kind of monopoly on any of those.
But they don't need a monopoly. That's the thing, right? Is that you don't need a monopoly anymore. I mean, there is no need for they just have their ecosystem. The ecosystem of Silicon Valley is thinking about things that nobody else think about. I mean, we are thinking about going beyond Mars to go mine the asteroids beyond Mars to access some of the metals that is available, rare metals that is available there. I mean, you should see, I mean, the amount of thinking that is ongoing and the amount of entrepreneurship that is being thought through, and you're not seeing that anywhere else in the world. And that's the basic of entrepreneurs, is to think big and then to put the money at work to make that happen. And it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm hoping, and I want more innovation center like Silicon Valley, but the size and scope and scale that Silicon Valley is at right now is mind blowing.
It is. We have a pretty insurmountable lead, but I would love to see us stamp out versions of Silicon Valley around the world. I think that would be
Yeah.
good
Yeah, no,
for innovation.
I mean, it's happening, right? When you see Elon Musk, when you see people like Elon Musk moving and willing to bet on other ecosystem and taking the lead on those ecosystem to make those ecosystem more like Silicon Valley. I think, as you said, it's good, right? That's what it needs to happen, and it's good, and it's good for Silicon Valley to be challenged in a way, and so yes, I'm excited about that. It's gonna democratize innovation. It's gonna make it more palatable to a lot more people. So I think that's the right thing to do.
Amen. I'm with you. Believe it or not, Philippe, we're about out of time, but I gotta get in one last question. It's one of my favorites. So you've accomplished so much. What's your advice for a younger version of Philippe?
So I think for me, the world is accelerating and is going faster and faster. So it's doing that at a breathtaking pace, right? So what you need to do is, younger Philippe, what he needs to do is he needs to set himself up to be constantly learning from everything, everywhere. We know have the opportunity to learn from everybody around the world. So do not limit yourself to one language and one culture. The world is your oyster. Embrace it. Accept the diversity of thinking. One of the things that I found very disturbing in the United States right now is the fact that we are not accepting each other, right? So the people are thinking differently, and because they are thinking differently, they are not liked or sometimes hated, right? So do not take that mindset. The world is your oyster. People are thinking about things differently. Understand how they are thinking and adjust to what you do in order to be successful. And then the future is in front of you. So do not look behind, right? Look in front of you and become successful at what you're doing. And at this point, to be honest, when I'm looking at where I was 20, 30 years ago, when I'm looking at where I am now, and when I'm looking at the pace of acceleration, I would think sky is the limit.
And that is how we define a growth mindset. Beautifully said.
Thank you so much.
Well, Philippe, I wish we had more time. We could go on all day. This is great. I hope you'll come back and do another version of this at some point. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. You're asking all the right questions. I'm more than happy to come back and talk to you more.
I love it. This has been so much fun. But for this week, we got to sign off. This is Dan Turchin, your host of AI and the Future of Work. Back next week with another fascinating guest.